What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Billy G Games back with another deck profile and presented by
Savi Tapatella.
Hey man, so what did you do yesterday, Savi?
Yesterday I went to the OTS championships and I played GHOTI.
Yeah, and man, top 8. This is gonna be insane. So why don't you tell us, your deck list here real quick?
Okay, so basically I got three paces, Light of the GHOTI. I got 2 big wave, small wave, 3 transmodify, 1 fishborg launcher, 2 exceeps, Omen of the GHOTI, 2 gluttonous reptolfin Grethus, 3 most distant deepest depths, 3 silent anglers, 3 Betuniful, 3 nibs, 2 gamma seals, 1 shift, fairy of the GHOTI, 1 Snopios, shade of the GHOTI, 2 lifeless leaf fish, 1 Zep, ruby of the GHOTI. I have 1 ready fusion and 1 instant fusion, and 3 super ancient deep sea king coelacanths, and 3 small worlds.
All right, cool. Why don't you explain to me the small world engine here?
So basically, the small world is like, so the first card you reveal has to be like, only share 1 thing between the attribute, type, level, attack, and defense, right? So because the majority of the GHOTI stuff and like all my fish stuff is that they're water fish, and thanks to Gamma Seal being a good bridge, because he's different attack than literally everything, different defense than everything, being an aqua and being a water with a different level than any of the important pieces, it makes him a super good bridge, especially when you're playing against the cash mashup or like anything where they're making towers like Marincess. You can have either a Gamma Seal in your opener so you can break the board a little bit, or you can just have it as a good engine, like literally any leaf fit, like leaf fish, Gamma Seal, and then like coelacanth, because the ultimate goal of the deck is that you're supposed to get to coelacanth and paces, or just making coelacanth either through big wave, small wave, or like you can rip it out with a transmodify, because paces can banish himself from the field to summon any fish out of your hand, which can be coelacanth, which you can rip him off from a small world.
Ah, okay.
Or you can use a big wave, small wave to pop any of your monsters to then just make coelacanth out of your hand as well. The third way to do it is also to get transmodify. Transmodify can send any monster to summon one with like same attribute or level but 1 higher. So I can either use my 1 copy of Snopios who specials himself, which is a level 6, to make coelacanth because they're both fish waters,
right.
Or I can do like a ready fusion to make either my like a level 4 rare fish or level 2 Alvain, so I can sync with any of my level 4s or any of my level 2s, whichever I need at the time, and then I can use a transmodify to send them as a cost and then just summon coelacanth out of the deck. And there's plenty of ways to get paces too. The field spell can banish any fish which from hand or graveyard to just add any GHOTI monster from deck to hand. So I can either use it to banish any fish, add an exceep to summon himself, so I can just normal a tuner, sink them for a 6, and then just get the immediate value for a transmodify. Or I can add paces, so that way I can get the combo going. Betuniful can grab paces whenever I need to if I just summon it. And like Silent Angler is a good extender just to make the Arianthos, which is like him, the level 6 extender. So that way you can just make coelacanth as well. So the majority of the deck is mostly just making coelacanth and then being able to combo. So once you've got coelacanth out, the idea is you can drop a card, and assuming you don't get like ashed, then you're allowed to. You basically want to summon any level 4, preferably Leaf Fish, because he can recycle cards and get you to draw a card. So preferably it'd be Leaf Fish, Shift, and then 2 Grethus. You run only 2 Grethus because you don't really want them in the opener, but luckily with like stuff like Leaf Fish, you can recycle them. And the idea there is you do Gluttonous to sync with coelacanth because it goes into a level 10. So that way you can, and the first one you always want to do is you want to go into Baron. Now, despite the fact that a lot of players will nib you if you just summon out all 5 monsters, like all 4 monsters, because that's like your 6th summon, a lot of them will actually want to like wait and see where you go with it because they don't know your deck very well. So if they let you do it, then you immediately sink into a Baron, so that way you can pop it, you can negate a nib in case they just didn't pay attention. I've had many players just go, God, that sucks, when they see it. Also, Gluttonous has a cool effect where if you get synced with as material, then the monster made with it gets a 200 attack and defense point boost for every card you had in your hand. That's a permanent boost, and it's only for what they had at the time. Most players will have 5 cards in their hand, so a lot of the times it's a permanent 4K Baron. Or if you're afraid that you're going to get Ghost Spelled to try to like stop you from reviving, because the next step is level 4 and another Grethus. to make White Aura Monoceros. White Aura Monoceros, when he's Synchro Summoned, he can target a fish monster in your graveyard and revive it, but it's not allowed to attack that turn. So if you go first, you can sync with Coelacanth to make any level 10, preferably Baron, and then you can make a Monoceros to target the Coelacanth to revive him because he's a soft once per turn, not a hard once per turn. So you can use the effect again. So if you're afraid of that getting Ghost Spelled with an effect, you can just not boost him and go Chainlink 1, White Aura Whale to target Coelacanth, Chainlink 2, Greethus on the Sen to just boost its attack points. The attack point boost doesn't matter to anybody, but it lets you chain block a possible interruption. So that way you can just make the Coelacanth, and then the idea there is you also make sync a Shift with the Monocero, so that way you can open up more zones, because Coelacanth is better with the less zones you have. And you can just sync those two into a Ravenous Crocodragon. I only play one of these, so that and the best part is when you Synchro Summon, you get a free draw for just one card, because one for each non-tuner. So that means that you're already netting one extra card that you can just use as a drop for Coelacanth. And then the next monsters you want to summon out after you only have just the Baron, the Crocodragon, and the Coelacanth is you get 3 monsters, because you want to put the Baron in the EMZ, so that way you get more zones to work with the Coelacanth. So you want to get a Fishborg Launcher and just any 2 level 4s, whichever ones you think you'll use the less about. You want to keep the Exceeps in the deck, because the field spell can banish a fish's cost to add an GHOTI, which he actually gets to see that and summon himself right afterwards. So it's a free summon. So you want to keep those out. So usually it's like another Leaffish or an Angler, whichever one you need.
Okay.
And after that, the Fishborg Launcher can sync with the Crocodragon, and then typically the level 10 I prefer to go into after that is this Ice Jade Gamir Adrian, and that one's really cool because a lot of the time you can either because what it does is protects all your face-up monsters from being destroyed or banished by card effects. So because of that, it stops a Fenrir, it stops a Rysar from being able to target your stuff. As far as I understand it, it doesn't actually work against evenly matched, but a lot of players don't know the actual difference between your cards being banished by card effects or being banished by the player. So it actually ends up being a mind game against a lot of players from just not wanting to activate the evenly or thinking they can't. So they might just scoop it up out of frustration, which is another way you can win. Ideally though, you do it to stop like any Raigekis, any Lightning Storms. It's just a full protection, and similar to Abyss Dweller, it's retroactive. So once it's happened, it's going to work on any new monsters you make in that turn, so all your stuff is just straight up protected. And then after that, you have 2 level 4s. If you know you're going to play against any graveyard strategies currently, like Branded, especially Branded, then Abyss Dweller is right there. It did get worse after the tournaments kind of like came out of the format a bit, but still, against decks like any graveyard strategy, Abyss Dweller will end up stopping it. And the cool part is that since the entirety of your deck, except for like Baron, is water, it's a boost of all your monsters by 500, which sometimes is relevant. Sometimes you can just overlay this into a game and just help you just kill your opponents off. Also, if you're not playing against it and you know you're playing against cash, like maybe games 2 or 3, instead you can just keep the 2 out there. And the next standby phase, after either Paces or Shift is banished, you can summon them, and they have a quick synchro effect, like similar to a quick draw synchron, formula synchron, where you can go into a fish synchro monster using them. Which means now that you have 2 level 4s, you either go into an Arion Post during your opponent's turn, or you can Arion Post during your opponent's turn, or you can go into a Deep Beyond. And the cool thing about Deep Beyond is that the cool thing about these tuners is that you also have a third tuner in your deck, right? And the third tuner is Zep Ruby of the GHOTI. The cool thing is that if you have a level 2 into a 4 and you sync into a 6, you can go and banish this on your opponent's turn. And if this gets banished, immediately you can use the effect of Synchro Summon, which is just goes into a free 8, right? And with the free 8, you can either make a White Aura Whale, or you can make an Ascan the Bicorn GHOTI. I only run one of each because they're not the most relevant, so Cashier players won't just banish these. And if they do banish them, that's fine. That's totally okay. You can afford to lose it. Ascan is really good because on Synchro Summon, you can target any card they control and any fish you control and banish both. Typically, you're going to banish him, so that way he has another trigger where if you banish him, you can banish a fish from your graveyard's cost to just re-summon himself. So that way, it's just a free level 8. And if you already, if you have another tuner or something like that, that can go into a Deep Beyond, which is insane. and a white or a whale can pop their attack position monsters. This is really relevant if you're playing against link decks because their monsters can't go into defense mode, and if you know that they need to like build up some link monsters to set up before they can really protect themselves, you can wipe those off. A lot of Cast Hero players put their monsters in attack mode just because they don't think they're going to get wiped, so you can hit them at the right time for that. The important part is though is that his effect to synchro, his effect to pop the attack position monsters is a when, so you have to make sure that you have the trigger discipline necessary to wait for stuff to resolve and kind of know to synchro like on the summon of a monster or just in the open game state. With Ascan is really good because his targeted card removal means that you can hit stuff like a branded lost or like a branded regained or any field spell or continuous spell that you think is incredibly relevant, so that way you can get rid of it. Also, the thing that everybody is afraid of is like the big Deep Beyonds. Sorry, I don't know where this went. Is the big Deep Beyond right here. And Deep Beyond on Synchro Summon can banish a whole board. This is the last thing you want to ever have to do to interact with your opponent. So if you already have the protection fired off, you have the negate fired off, or both your negates, because you also sink into a Dragite on your turn. I almost forgot to mention that. Because Fishborg Launcher, if he's in the graveyard and all your other monsters are water, which they're going to be during the combo, then you can just revive him and banish him when he leaves the field. So in that new space you made after you synced into the Ice Jade, you can then just resummon him and sink off a Coelacanth. And now you have the Ice Jade, you have Adamant, the Dragite, you have a Baron, and you could possibly either go into an Abyss Dweller, or you can have the synchro plays for either Deep Beyonds, Arion Posts, that can go into either the Ascan or the Whale. Now, Go to the Deep Beyond looks like a good card, but you have to wait until you know that your opponent doesn't have any more plays. A lot of this deck is really good, but you have to make sure that you have some. You have to have some like in-depth knowledge about how combos and stuff for the game works. You have to kind of know how branded works, so that way you know which cards to banish, or you know which cards to destroy, so that way you don't have to worry about extra stuff. If you're playing against labs, actually your matchup is really good, because if you can Deep Beyond your opponent on their turn to just get rid of all their traps, even if you get rid of some of your cards in the process, they can't play. If they go to the set 3 or set 5 or whichever they end up doing, and you banish the whole board in their main phase before any other trap gets activate, that's game over. They can't play. So your matchups are really good into a lot of decks. Obviously you run the nibs because of like Cashier and all that stuff. Also the value that you can get off of a Snopios or in the tuners is really great, because it's the next standby phase after they're banished, so you can do it on their turn, you can do it on yours. If you ever sync off an Arianthos, you can target a fish and banish it, and then like get equal or lower level. So usually the play is like you banish a Zep on its synchro summon, and then if you synchro summon with it using the Zep, then the next one you grab is a Snopios. And if you can make sure that you don't banish the Snopios, the Zep again, because it's a hard once per turn to like resummon or sync, then you can possibly just get extra grinds on your opponent's turn, because these tuners can summon themselves in the next standby phase, including yours, so on your turn you get easy sinks to go into stuff that's not fish. Like, you can't synchro summon into a Dragite, you can't synchro summon into a Baron on your opponent's turn, but you can do it on yours. So if you don't get the full combo, then you can still like play the game out. The GHOTI deck, the GHOTI archetype, is mostly built on grinding. I wish the support was like there to be able to do more of a pure deck, but doing Coelacanth Turbo still works out. I do run 3 copies of the Coelacanth, so I'm not entirely sure where I put that, but yeah, this is most of the list. Oh yeah.
Let's see the rest of your extra deck, and then we'll.
Yeah. Also, the extra deck just runs. It runs 2 Deep Beyonds.
Okay, sure.
These are German because I got them in Europrint.
Sure.
You run 2 Arianthoses because they're some of the best cards. They're like the bread and butter of the deck. You need to have 2 copies in case a Cashier player knows enough about you to be able to like banish this face down. Because if you can't, then it's really hard to go from 2 and 4 into anything else. You also run a Chen Ying, because if you're going second and you're able to break your opponent's board, this is just a great finisher. Deep Beyond also gets 500 attack for every face-up banished monster, and if you get to banish enough of your own monsters using either Snopios' cost or using like the Tunifuls that banish himself to summon out of the deck, Paces or Shift that can banish himself from the field to graveyard, or just any other effects like that, then you know the Chen Ying and the and the like Deepion can just win games. Like I've killed a Cash player once doing almost 12,000 damage just between a Chen Ying and a Deepion, even if I synced on my turn just because there's enough banished cards. Castura players and Sprite players, they are going to or like the Runic Sprite players or just straight up Runic decks, they're going to banish enough of your cards anyway that stuff like Chen Ying is incredibly scary. Also, a lot of times with Cash players, they don't know which one they want to hit. Do they want to hit the Chen Ying that can, use their strategy against them to take them out? Do they want to hit the Ice Jade that can stop them from banishing their stuff, which is their most prominent form of removal? Do they get rid of a Baron that's just a genuine negate that everybody knows is good? So, because barely anybody knows your deck, they don't know which ones to hit, and even if they do hit the right ones, you have plenty of different options to go into. Your extra deck is mostly like a Swiss Army knife of stuff that you can use whenever you need it, and I really love this archetype, and I really believe in it, so I'm going to keep working on it to see if I can ever do any better to top OTS tournaments, but,
hey man, top 8 is still, you still got up there,
yeah, no, like no shame, I love it. And the cool part is that there's a level 4 fish that you can just fusion summon into a or instant fusion, so that way you can really make the most of it. The unfortunate part with the Fishborg monster is all the other monsters do have to be water, so if you sync with an Alvain, your combo can change. But the cool part is that, like, because of how easy it is to sync off of it, even if you don't get as full of a combo as you can still sync into a lot of like really interesting things. You can play through a D shifter, you can play through the right cards not being in your hand. You just have to make sure that you understand it. And while it does take a lot of practice and it does take a lot of skill, if you care enough about the deck, you're gonna get there.
Hey man, thanks so much for the rec roll. I know it's a pretty much a longer one, but this is definitely more in depth. So thank you so much for it, right, man?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Bye.